Wyman's come to join us for Halloween, and he's got some special treats for all the little scientists. So let's send trick or treat in Morse code to the moon. Hello, we've got another video chapter review for you this week. This chapter came out on Halloween, and to be honest, I am a bit spooked by what we saw on the video feed, but we'll get to that later. By the way, our Halloween chapter last year was when we met this cute little pumpkin. Alright, let's get into it. In chapter 216, we have a successful rocket launch. I don't know if this counts as seeing Senku cry again for the first time since before Stone Wars, but it's fun to see them so thrilled about it. So they sent out 2 rockets. This first one is Senku 7. I don't know if that really gives us any clue as to how much time passed, but 7 tries does sound like a long time. So we have 2 satellites. The first one is pointed towards Earth and gave us a lot of information about how Earth has changed. And the second one is a space telescope, probably also orbiting Earth, but facing the moon. Our first satellite, Zeno calls a recon satellite. That's a reconnaissance satellite, which would be just an observation satellite, but it includes spy satellites. One of the first recon satellites took film photographs and dropped the film back to Earth in canisters, like a literal photobomb. This was to protect CIA spy satellite images. But then they went to encrypted digital. The solar panels are a unique arrangement that's not very efficient since a lot of them are not facing the sun at any given time. But if they can't reposition them to track the sun, then it would make sense to have full coverage. And I love Chrome moments like this. He just speaks to my heart when he talks about how the more you understand, the less you understand. He has all kinds of moments like this. And every time it's like it really came from someone who is just so thrilled by science. Talking about how all this can be achieved, just like these rockets started from just rocks in the ground. It's stuff like that that hits you emotionally somehow for someone who's just curious about everything. And you hear real people talk like this too. So a couple of examples I can give you, Neil deGrasse Tyson and Bill Nye. I found a couple of examples of them talking about just like appreciation for science and just amazed at discovering things, that kind of stuff. And you know, the series itself does the same thing. The more we learn about the many huge mysteries, the more questions we have. The big reveal in this chapter is a great example. We're cutting back to Chrome a lot during this chapter about his struggle about the return rocket. He says it could take decades, so maybe Chrome's return rocket might not be finished or might not be sent until after the Wyman arc, and he's just getting a head start on it now. To begin with, was it meant to replace the manned spacecraft that Senku had already planned? Or is it in addition to? If it's a separate one, I think Kohaku's eyesight might be more useful on the return mission to spot the first team, to retrieve them, if that's how it goes down. We see a bunch of drawings, but we still don't really know where they're going with it. Learning from Senku and Zeno's trial and error, apparently. We'll just have to see what their next step is. So Kohaku is in charge of watching the video feed and seeing her stare at the TV so closely. I can't help but hear from my childhood, don't sit too close to the TV or you'll go cross-eyed. But really, Kohaku, don't ruin your eyes. So she finally sees something, and I like how they've made this moment of truth a little more dramatic but funny with her bringing the TV. It's a lot better than just calling them, hey, I found something. By the way, Senku bragging on Kohaku. It's pretty much the same thing he said when she found the oil on the aerial photo, saying she has the power of observation. Alright, let's get into this world map. Let's talk about all these changes that they've noted. So all of these should have had some kind of reasoning from Mr. Kurare about why these are the changes that happened over the 3,700 years. So the Panama Canal, let's start with that. On the way to South America, they were not sure if it was still open or not, but they said probably not. But it was never really a matter of it being open because it's like this series of elevators. You can't just go through. They were nowhere near making missiles yet, so they couldn't have just blasted it like the Suez Canal. Okay, Yellowstone. The effects of some giant eruption is visible from space. So the Yellowstone volcano is here in the Gallatin Mountains. It's been erupting for 16 million years, shaping the surface from Oregon to Wyoming. 8 million years ago was the largest explosion, and there was another 2 million years ago, but the most recent was 640,000 years ago. And we're always hearing about it's gonna blow at any minute, it's overdue. It is still active with geysers and hot springs, but scientists don't expect eruptions on that scale anymore. They're also less often now, from every 500,000 years to now every 1.5 million years, the eruptions. So based on that, the next eruption is not expected for another 900,000 years. So for this to happen during the 3,700 year nap is, first of all, very early, and 3,700 years is just very tiny on that kind of scale. And then some others are changes in climate. Chelsea has talked about the climate before, explaining why the desert in South America spread north and why Japan has so much snow. And she does confirm that the global temperature went down. So right now, the South American desert is here, and the explanation for spreading north is the colder seawater with less humidity because it's not evaporating, so less rain. Fun fact, this Atacama Desert has been used as a test site for future NASA Mars missions because it compares the most closely to Mars' surface than anywhere on Earth. Okay, the China Plains turned into rivers and wetlands, big rivers. Right now it contains a network of rivers that have dams and irrigation canals. It's flat with unpredictable weather and prone to flooding when these dams would fail. So I guess the area just became constantly flooded. The desert in Africa turned green, which is the opposite of what's happening right now. The desert is growing 10% in the last 100 years, caused by increased greenhouse gases from humans, but also natural changes in climate too. And Taiju says it's not all bad. For the largest desert in the world to be growing even bigger, it impacts a lot of African people right now, so yes, it would be a welcome change. Then the Great Barrier Reef in Australia, world's largest structure made by living things, which are billions of tiny coral polyps. These polyps are easily stressed out, and it causes changes in the ecosystem for the whole reef. Currently, the reef suffers from climate change, chemical dumping, invasive species, so the coral is receding fast. The first petrification event might have caused a rapid change in climate, rapid enough that it killed the fragile reef further, but clearly it bounced back. Something that's not mentioned but shown sneakily behind Chelsea here is Bering Strait. The fact that this is connected again indicates the sea level has gone down. If the global temperature drops, icebergs will form again and capture seawater, as far as I know. So that may be what happened here. This might be further proven by the polar ice on the map is a lot more widespread than it is in modern times. But in this case, you kind of have to consider artist rendition, since portraying a spherical world on a flat map is already hard enough. So most of these natural changes, we'll talk about the power plants in a second, are attributed to the stopping of global warming and reduction of greenhouse gases. There's a debate these days about whether global warming can be stopped or reversed, but that's while human activity is still ongoing. These kinds of changes happened in the 3,700 years before modern civilization too, so a lot of it is natural cycles also. So the nuclear power plants caused massive damage. We basically had Chernobyls and Fukushimas all over the planet. It's the radioactive decay that is no longer a problem after 100 years, except at the actual site of the power plant, which is still highly radioactive for thousands more years. So what do you think about the new globe? The only thing I wonder about is I wonder if they chose to ignore anything that might have happened to Japan. I don't know if anything would have happened there for 3,000 years, but it's a quite active geological area, right? So maybe there should have been some changes other than just Mount Fuji. Okay, moving along. I'd like to take a second to talk about the number 7 billion. There's this line that they repeat again and again. They're going to revive all 7 billion people. And it's here in this chapter. And they say it a lot. And I'm not the only one who wonders how are they going to revive all 7 billion people when every time we see a group of statues, so many of them are broken. And now events like these guarantee loss of thousands of people broken and buried deep in the ground. Even just the number of planes that crashed at the moment of petrification killed hundreds of thousands right away. So if they're going to keep making this claim, the only way to revive everyone is if they find a solution to eroded broken statues and to find them all. So I just needed to make a point about that. Alright, what is the interpretation of this image? What did you think when you first finally saw it? They've done a pretty good job of giving us something that's so clear yet unclear and raised so many more questions. So what is it? My first thought was it's a pile of Medusas, but it could be a hole. Is it where the Medusas are made? Is it some kind of new future tech? It's just all scattered and unorganized, which might leave out some possibilities, but still, there's just... what is it? So if it's a hole, it's dark because of shadows. Or maybe it's a pile of Medusas and it has something to do with they don't reflect certain wavelengths. And Kohaku says it's slightly changing. So he could be adding more Medusas or digging a deeper hole if it's one of those. Seems like Wyman is preparing for battle. But how? What is he doing? If it's Medusas, is that his only weapon? But then that vacuum seal activation incident tells us that the Medusa may not work on the moon, which means there's no rescue for that one-way plan. What has Wyman been doing all these years? It's been several years since that message, "Do you want to die?" And they said he went quiet after that. Alright, I'm gonna put on this picture just because it's so pretty. Next chapter. Is it time to prepare the manned moon mission? The space roadmap says yes. We might find out who will be the ones to go. Although before going to Spain, Senku said they need spacesuits, so we might still be making that. We might find out who will be on the team. Something that's been long debated, who will be in the capsule. We don't even know if Senku will go. You would think he would because he wants to go to space, but they always say he's too weak. Ryusui, Tsukasa, and Senku were portrayed as the ones to go, but it wasn't really a confirmation at all. There might be a new development soon that will extend this final arc so we don't get to the moon too fast. I feel like there's more buildup and conflict coming before we get to the moon. Chroma and Suika's plan may have to come to the forefront soon, whatever direction it goes. If they continue to experiment with the Medusa and find it won't work on the moon, then that return rocket may become the new plan. And we might also see something about a lander. Alright, my questions for you. What is that thing they found on the moon? What's your interpretation? What do you think it is? And who do you think will go on the moon mission? Now they're saying even Kohaku could go into space. We always thought Tsukasa was going to go into space, but where's he been? Anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.